Snow slapped my windshield like it had something personal against me as I pulled my beat-up Ford into the curb in front of my son's house. Christmas Eve. Streets quiet. Houses glowing warm with lights. And me sitting in the dark like a guest star nobody wanted. I killed the engine and let the silence settle. My fingers rested on the only thing I brought besides a suitcase, a red scarf. Soft, worn, and the last piece of comfort I had left after the whole world flipped me upside down just hours earlier. That morning, Hartley Renovations, my company, my livelihood, was officially gone. The Maplewood Deck collapse lawsuit wiped me out clean. My house. The bank took it before lunch. My savings. Burned through like tissue paper. I wasn't just broke. I was ground zero broke, and I had nowhere else to go. The cold slapped me in the face as soon as I stepped out of the car. I walked up the little pathway, hearing muffled Christmas music from inside their house. Shadows from their tree danced across the window. I knocked. Once. Twice. The door cracked open only a few inches. Lauren stood there, my daughter-in-law, looking at me like I was a stranger selling vacuum cleaners at 9 p.m. "Oh, Yvonne," she said, voice flat as a parking lot. "This is unexpected. I just need a few days," I told her, "until I get things sorted." She didn't move. She didn't even blink. Hand on the door like she was guarding a vault. Daniel walked up behind her, shoulders tense, face stiff. My boy looked everywhere except at me. "What happened?" he asked, but his voice was cautious, like he already did want the answer. "The bank took the house this afternoon," I said calmly. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Lauren crossed her arms immediately. That little move people do when they've already decided something and are just waiting for the moment to say it out loud. "Daniel," she muttered under her breath, annoyed. "We talked about this." Daniel took a slow breath. "Mom, tonight just isn't a good time." I stood straight. "I only need one night." He shook his head like he was rehearsing the line. "Please don't take this wrong, but we're tired. We can't take on your problems every time something goes wrong. We can't keep doing this." His words hit soft, not sharp, but that didn't make them hurt less. All I said was, "I see." Lauren nudged the door inward. "We hope you understand." Then the door closed. Quiet but final. Snow landed on my hair and shoulders as I walked back down the path. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink hard. I just kept moving, one slow step at a time. Back in my car, I wrapped the red scarf around my neck. It still smelled faintly of Martha's perfume, my late wife, the only person who ever showed up every single time life tried to knock me off the map. I leaned back against the cold seat. No heat, no engine. Just me, the dark, and the steady thump of snow hitting the roof. My phone buzzed once, twice. I ignored it. Then a voicemail popped up. A calm male voice filled the car. "Mrs. Hartley, this is Edmund Blackwell. My employer, Mr. Elias Blackwell, requests to see you as soon as possible. Please return this call." I sat up. A billionaire calling me on Christmas Eve. After my own family shut the door on me, I replayed the message. Not a mistake. He said my name clearly, and something about his tone, steady, formal, told me this wasn't a prank, and it wasn't negotiable. My world had already fallen apart. I had nothing left to lose. And sometimes when you hit rock bottom, the ground cracks open in ways you don't expect. My finger hovered over the call button. Before I pressed it, I had no idea a stranger's voice was about to change the entire direction of my life. I finally hit the call button, expecting it to ring forever. Rich folks usually have entire phone mazes and assistants stacked like dominoes. But no, the line connected almost instantly. "MRS. Hartley," the same calm voice said. "This is Edmund Blackwell. I got your message," I answered. "What exactly is this about?" "My employer, Mr. Elias Blackwell, has requested to meet you tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Blackwell Estate in Hillsborough." I frowned. "I don't know him." "He believes you do." That made absolutely zero sense. The only Blackwells I ever knew were the ones splashed across business magazines and gossip headlines, the kind of people who own golf course-sized living rooms and personal jets with names like Falcon Elite. "Look," I said, "I think you may have the wrong person." Edmund lowered his voice a notch. "He remembers you clearly. He asked for you by name. The snow outside thickened as I stared out my foggy windshield. My breath hung like smoke in the air. And this meeting, it can't wait. It cannot, he replied. No hesitation. I'll text you the address. The call ended just like that. No warm goodbyes. No niceties. Just final, cold precision. I sat there for a long minute, watching snow slide down the glass like the night itself was melting. Why would a billionaire want anything from a woman who just lost every last thing except a scarf and a suitcase? People like him didn't even see people like me. But the way the call hit me, sharp, unexpected, it felt like something had shifted. A hinge creaked open somewhere in the universe. Morning came gray and slow. I wiped frost off the windshield with my sleeve and started the drive. The heater groaned like it was tired of me too. The streets were empty, holiday quiet. I kept replaying that voicemail, the way Edmund said, my employer, like the man he worked for was royalty. By the time I turned onto the long private road leading to the estate, my jaw literally dropped. The place looked like the Capitol building, and a luxury hotel had a kid together. Massive pillars, stone walls, security cameras that probably cost more than my entire previous house. Before I even pressed the call button, the iron gate slid open. Quiet, effortless, like they knew I was coming. MRS. Hartley. A voice crackled through the speaker. Please proceed up the drive. The driveway went on for what felt like a lifetime. I parked near the front steps where a man in a long charcoal gray coat stood waiting, hands behind his back, posture too perfect to be casual. He didn't smile, but he didn't frown either. MRS. Hartley, he said with a slight nod. I'm Edmund. Of course he was. Thank you for coming on such short notice, he continued. MR. Blackwell is awake and prepared to see you. Prepared? Like I was about to take an exam? He led me through a silent hallway lined with paintings and bookshelves taller than me. No holiday decorations. No Christmas music. No warmth. The place felt like a museum where even the ghosts wouldn't dare talk. At the end of the hall, Edmund opened a heavy wooden door. Inside was a large study, curtains half drawn, sunlight slicing through the room in quiet lines. A medical machine beeped softly beside a chair, and sitting in that chair was Elias Blackwell himself, older than his photos, paler, thinner, but his eyes, sharp enough to cut glass. He lifted a hand slowly. MRS. Hartley, he whispered. Thank you for coming. I stepped closer, feeling the weight of something I couldn't name. I don't know why I'm here, I admitted. He held my gaze. But I know why. He paused, steady, deliberate. 9 years ago, you saved my life. My breath stalled. Here. No. Him. How? His voice dropped lower. You pulled me out of a wrecked car during the storm. You wrapped me in your red scarf. And you stayed with me until help arrived. My hand tightened around the scarf at my neck. I never expected a moment from nearly a decade ago to come knocking on my door, especially not like this. But that wasn't even the wild part. The real shock came when he told me what he wanted from me now. For a long second, the only sound in the room was the soft pulse of the medical machine beside Elias Blackwell. His story hung in the air like a breath nobody wanted to exhale. I didn't know who you were, I finally said. It was dark. Your face was bloody. And that ditch was filling with rain faster than I could think. A small smile tugged weakly at one corner of his mouth. But I knew who you were, or I learned soon after. And I have waited 9 years to speak to you. Why? The words slipped out before I could filter it. Why wait? Why track me down now? His fingers brushed the blanket across his lap. They looked fragile, almost transparent. Because I am running out of time, he said simply. And because there is something I must place in the hands of someone who actually understands. Loyalty. Edmund stood in the corner like a statue, his neutral stare giving away nothing. He reached into a cabinet when Elias gestured, pulling out a large, thick folder and placing it on the table between us. Elias tapped the top of it lightly. This, he said, is everything I rebuilt after that night. He waited for my reaction, but I didn't say anything. The truth was, I wasn't sure I could speak. It felt like stepping into a movie scene, One of those dramatic rich people moments you see on TV where someone drops a secret that flips the whole story. I should have died that night, he continued. I was drowning inside a shattered car, and I had given up completely. I had decided I didn't want to fight anymore. Not for my company, not for my name, not even for my children. I blinked. Your children? His expression sharpened, weary, but not soft. Cole and Adrienne, he said. My heirs. At least, that's what they believe. There was a bitterness in the way he said it. Not angry, just tired. The kind of tired that comes from disappointment that's been rehearsed too many times. They grew up with everything, he continued. And because of that, they believed everything was owed to them. They saw my wealth, not my warnings. They saw my name, not my effort. And they saw me only as their provider, not their father. I shifted in my seat. I'm sorry. That must have been hard. He let out a faint exhale, something like a laugh without humor. It was reality, he said, and reality doesn't care if we like it. He nodded at Edmund again, who placed a second, smaller envelope next to the first. This one was sealed with thick wax. I spent the last years documenting everything, Elias said. Their gambling debts, their misuse of my accounts, their attempts to force my hand, their belief that they would inherit everything simply because they were born with my last name. My stomach tightened. I had seen people assume entitlement before, but never on this scale. And yet, he said, looking straight at me, you, a complete stranger, climbed down a muddy embankment just to save the life of a man you did not even recognize. It was just the right thing to do, I said softly. His eyes warmed. Exactly. He took a slow, somewhat shaky breath. Then he added, that night changed my life, and now I need someone whose judgment is unclouded, someone who won't be bribed or fooled, someone who knows what it means to lose and what it means to help. I swallowed. What are you asking me for? He didn't answer with words at first. He gestured toward the sealed envelope. Inside this, he murmured, is what comes after I'm gone. My pulse kicked hard. Why me? I whispered. Because you won't let greed make your choices, he said. And because, Yvonne, you saved me once. Now I need you to protect what comes next. His voice wavered. He lifted a third envelope, thinner, white, fragile looking. This one, he said quietly, you open only after my death. My fingers closed around it before I even realized what I was doing. Heavy, cold, final. He held my gaze, all pretense gone. Promise me, he whispered. Promise me you will follow everything inside. I nodded before my mind even caught up. I promise. His shoulders relaxed. His eyes softened. And then the monitor beside him gave out a long, steady tone. I froze. Sir, Edmund rushed forward. But it was too late. Elias Blackwell, the man whose life I once pulled out of a storm, had taken his last breath in the middle of finishing his final request to me. I was still holding the envelope when the room fell still, and I had no idea that what he left behind would detonate his entire family, starting at the funeral. The morning of the funeral felt colder than usual, the kind of cold that crawls under your coat and settles right into your bones. I parked at the far edge of Cedar Hill Cemetery, not in the fancy front lot where the black limousines lined up like a luxury parade. I didn't belong in that group, and honestly, I didn't want to. I stayed by the iron gates, fingers tucked into my sleeves. I wasn't invited, but I wasn't there to cause trouble. I just wanted to pay respects to the only man in months who'd looked me in the eyes and seen something worth trusting. From where I stood, I could see the Blackwell family gathering under a huge white canopy near the center of the cemetery. Everything about the setup screamed money, polished chairs, heating lamps, people dressed in black coats that probably cost more than my first car. A sleek limousine pulled up, and out stepped Cole Blackwell, Elias's eldest. Tall, expensive suit, expression sharp enough to slice through glass. Right behind him came Adrienne, scrolling on her phone like she was checking brunch reservations instead of attending her father's funeral. Neither of them looked sad, not even close. More annoyed than anything, like the whole burial thing was a meeting they were forced to attend. I watched from afar, quiet, unseen. They fussed with a lawyer near the front row, faces tight. movement sharp, the kind of tension that doesn't come from grief, but from money. I wasn't shocked, just tired. A few moments later, steady footsteps approached along the path. I looked over and saw Edmund. He wore the same clean, pressed look as always, but something softer had settled in his expression. He changed direction when he noticed me standing near the gate and walked straight toward me. "Mrs. Hartley," he said quietly, giving a respectful nod. "Thank you for coming." "I'm not here to join the service," I said, "just paying my respects from a distance." "That is more than most will do today," he replied. Behind him, Cole was pacing beside the canopy. Clearly annoyed, Edmund wasn't standing at attention. But Edmund didn't rush, didn't flinch. "There may be complications today," he said carefully. "Mr. Blackwell's children are already challenging certain arrangements." I snorted softly. That didn't take long. "Indeed." Edmund hesitated before adding, "And Mr. Blackwell left you another item. He instructed it be given to you today, and only today." He reached inside his coat and pulled out a small, heavy envelope. Wax seal. Thick paper. The kind of thing you don't open casually. I tucked it inside my coat without a word. "You'll know when to read it," Edmund said. A gust of wind carried a corner of the funeral program across the path. It slapped against the gate post, fluttering like it wanted to warn me about something. The sky felt heavier, the kind of gray that seems to whisper caution. "I should go," Edmund said after glancing back toward the canopy. "They'll notice if I'm gone much longer." He turned, straightened his posture, and walked back toward the family, back toward the storm brewing under that white tent. The service started. Voices lowered. People gathered. I didn't move any closer. I listened from the gate as the priest spoke about a man most people there barely knew. When it ended, guests drifted off like snowflakes, quietly, slowly, disappearing into their expensive cars. Cole and Adrienne stayed behind, arguing with the lawyer again, hands slicing the air, faces tight with frustration. Whatever they were hearing, they didn't like it. Not one bit. I didn't wait for them to notice me. I walked back to my car, feeling the weight of the 2 envelopes tucked inside my coat. Elias had trusted me more than he trusted his own children, and deep down, I already knew whatever was coming next wasn't going to be peaceful. The next day, at the reading of the will, the whole room erupted, and my name was at the center of the explosion. The next morning, I walked into Patton and Hale Law Group with the kind of steady breath you take before stepping onto thin ice. The building had that cold corporate feel, shiny floors, hush-hush voices, a lobby that smelled like printer ink and ambition. Edmund waited for me on the 20th floor, standing tall and composed as ever. "We're ready for you," he said, guiding me down a hallway lined with glass offices. Ready for what was the question bouncing around in my chest. He opened a heavy conference room door, and inside sat Cole and Adrienne Blackwell, already looking annoyed, like they had been forced to wait 2 minutes longer than royalty should. Cole glared at me the second I stepped inside. No greeting, no nod, just pure, simmering hostility. Adrienne didn't even bother hiding her eye roll, though she tried to pretend she was too busy texting to notice me. At the head of the table stood the estate attorney, Mr. James Patton, silver hair, wire-frame glasses, and the calm expression of someone who had absolutely seen families melt down over money 1,000 times before. "Mrs. Hartley," he said politely, gesturing for me to sit. "Thank you for being here." I sat. Edmund positioned himself behind me like a quiet guard. Patton cleared his throat, opened a thick folder, and began. "As executor of Mr. Elias Blackwell's estate, I will be reading his final directives, all of which were documented within the last several weeks." Adrienne immediately cut in. "Then he was medicated. Anything he signed recently should be thrown out." Patton calmly slid 3 certified medical evaluations across the table. "These confirm full mental competency." All doctors verified he understood every decision. Cole snatched one of the reports, scanned it, and slammed it back down. "I don't care what some doctor wrote," he snapped. "Just tell us what we're getting." Patton didn't flinch. "Very well." He lifted the first document. "To Cole Blackwell, $100,000 designated specifically toward rehabilitation programs." Cole jerked upright. "Rehabilitation?" For what? What the hell does that mean? Patton simply said, "It's written exactly as your father instructed." Adrienne leaned forward, voice sharp enough to cut marble. And me? What did he decide for me? Patton read, to Adrienne Blackwell, $100,000, with usage outlined in her father's private notes. Adrienne shot up from her chair like she'd been launched. 100,000? My father was worth hundreds of millions. Where is the rest? Cole stood too. Yeah, where's the real inheritance? The houses, the accounts, the companies. Don't play games with us. Patton flipped to the next page, slow, deliberate, calm. The remainder of the estate, valued at approximately $760 million, is left to. He looked straight at me. MRS. Ivonne Hartley. The room exploded. Adrienne froze mid-breath, mouth open like she forgot how lungs work. Cole stared at me like I walked into the room carrying a grenade. That's a lie, Adrienne sputtered. A straight-up, full-on, Hollywood-level lie. Patton repeated. The remainder of the estate passes to Mrs. Hartley, per Mr. Blackwell's notarized, witnessed instructions. Adrienne nearly knocked over her chair. Who even is she? Patton didn't blink. The woman who saved your father's life. My jaw didn't tighten. My hands didn't shake. I just sat still, watching, letting the storm blow through the room. You manipulated him, Adrienne screamed. You must have. He would never. Patton cut her off. All directives were signed in the presence of medical staff and legal witnesses. Every file is authenticated. Every signature is verified. Cole paced like a caged animal. He was confused. He wasn't thinking straight. Patton slid a final folder across the table. These are your father's financial decisions from the past 2 years. Each one clear, consistent, recorded. Adrienne threw her phone across the table. It skidded into a stack of papers and fell to the floor with a loud crack. Then she stormed out. Cole followed, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Silence finally settled, thick and heavy. Patton gathered his papers neatly. MRS. Partly, legally speaking, everything is now yours. They may challenge the will, but they have no grounds. He handed me a sealed envelope. MR. Blackwell instructed this be given to you after the will reading. Edmund held the door open for me as I stepped into the hallway. Outside the tall windows, the city buzzed like nothing extraordinary had just happened, but my life and theirs had just shifted on its axis. My phone buzzed. Daniel's name. Perfect timing. Too perfect, because the moment he asked to celebrate together, I knew the storm wasn't even close to over. Daniel calling me right after the reading wasn't just suspicious. It was a neon sign flashing, "Here we go again." I let it ring the first time, and the second. But after the third, curiosity won. "Mom," he said, voice overly warm, the kind of warm people use when they're selling something. "I heard something crazy. Is it true?" I didn't answer. Let him stew. "Mom?" He pushed gently. "Can we talk? Maybe dinner tomorrow? Just us." And then, faint but clear, Lauren's voice whispered behind him. "Put it on speaker." Uh, there it was. I hung up. Not rude, just clean. By the time I reached the small cabin where I was staying, my mind wasn't racing, it was sorting. Neatly, quietly, like puzzle pieces snapping together after months of being scrambled. Inside, I set my bag down and pulled out one of the envelopes Elias had left, the heavy one, the one Edmund delivered at the funeral. I turned it in my hands for a moment, then opened it. 3 items slid out: a handwritten letter, a transcript, a USB drive. I unfolded the letter first. "Yvonne, before you decide what comes next, you must know the truth about those you love. I don't give you this to hurt you. I give it to free you." My stomach tightened. I plugged the USB into my laptop. A list of audio files popped up, each labeled with dates, each recorded months before Christmas Eve. I clicked the first one. Lauren's voice filled the room instantly, bright, smooth, practiced. "If she ever gets money, we need to play it right. We need a story that makes us look supportive." Daniel's voice followed, lower, more tired, but unmistakable. "She'll trust us. She hates conflict. She always backs down if we push her." I froze. Not shocked, but hollow. I clicked the next file. Lauren again, this time sharper. She's easy to manage. We just stay calm. If we push too hard, she breaks. Daniel sighed. I just don't want her living with us. She brings problems. Lauren responded without hesitation. Then we draw boundaries. Make her feel guilty. She'll back off. My jaw tightened. I didn't cry, didn't tremble. I just kept listening because truth, once it starts pouring out, demands to be heard. I opened the transcript next. Every line matched the audio, timestamps, dates, full conversations typed out in clean columns. Elias had documented all of it. He wasn't just wealthy, he was thorough. I kept reading. Daniel, if she asks for help, we tell her we are exhausted. She'll get the hint, Lauren. And if she comes back again, we say we're tired of carrying her problems. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the words. So that wasn't a stressed reaction on Christmas Eve. That was a plan. A rehearsed, step-by-step strategy. Elias's letter continued. You protected me without knowing who I was. You deserve to be free from manipulations disguised as love. What you hear now is not betrayal, it is clarity. Clarity. A word that suddenly felt like fresh air. I closed the laptop and reached for the scarf, Martha's scarf, my wife's scarf. It used to mean warmth and memory. Now it felt like a reminder that some things in life were real and some weren't. I opened the last few audio files. Lauren's voice. When she tells us anything, we act surprised, act grateful. She eats that up. Daniel. She just wants to feel included. It's not hard. Just pretend. Pretend. So dinner wasn't going to be a family reunion. It was going to be a performance. And I'd finally been handed the script. I placed everything back in the envelope, sealed it, and set it on the table. My pulse wasn't racing anymore. My mind wasn't foggy. Everything felt steady, straight line, sharp. I stood, walked to the window, and watched the snow dust the tops of the pine trees. For the first time in years, I knew exactly who I was dealing with. No hopes, no excuses, no illusions. Just truth, and truth frees you, whether you're ready for it or not. So when Daniel and Lauren walked into my cabin the next night, smiling like they practiced in the mirror, they had no idea what was waiting for them. The next evening, the cabin felt too calm for what was about to happen. I'd cleaned the place, set the table, warmed a simple pot of soup, and put out a cheap bottle of wine, the kind that costs less than lunch at a fast food joint. It wasn't meant to impress. It was meant to reveal. People act real when the environment doesn't cater to their ego. At exactly 7 p.m., headlights crawled up the snowy driveway. I didn't rush to the door. I let them knock. Daniel stood on the porch wearing a button-down shirt like he was auditioning for Good Son of the Year. Lauren was beside him, wrapped in a fitted coat with that plastic smile energy she used when she wanted something. Both were overdressed for a humble wooden cabin in the woods. Mom, Daniel said warmly, too warmly. It's good to see you. Thanks for having us, Lauren added, voice dipped in honey. I opened the door wider. Come in. Their eyes swept the cabin immediately. The cheap wine, the plain plates, the simple setup. Lauren's smile tightened faster than a purse string on sale day. This looks cozy, she said, forcing a laugh. Cozy's good, Daniel echoed, pulling out her chair like they were at some fancy brunch spot. They sat. I served soup. Lauren stared into her bowl like it might reveal treasure. It smells lovely, she chirped, just like old times. MMHMM, I replied, not giving her the reassurance she clearly wanted. Daniel leaned forward. Mom, we've been thinking a lot about everything. I stayed quiet. Let them work for it. Lauren jumped in like she was afraid the silence might ruin her scene. Christmas Eve was hectic. We were stressed. We didn't handle things well. You shut the door in my face, I said calmly. She blinked rapidly. Yes, well, we regret that, truly, and we want to rebuild. As a family. Daniel nodded quickly. We do. We mean it. I tilted my head. What changed? They exchanged a tiny glance, so quick most people wouldn't catch it. But I wasn't most people anymore. Lauren cleared her throat. We just realized. What matters? You matter. We want a fresh start. A do-over, Daniel added. How convenient, I murmured. Their smiles flickered. Lauren tried again. We can support each other better. Communicate. Be closer. Daniel's voice softened. Mom, we love you. Love. Funny how that word always seems to show up right after money enters a conversation. I rose from my chair and walked to the shelf where my laptop was waiting. Their eyes followed me like I was carrying a lit fuse. I set it on the table and turned the screen to face them. Lauren frowned. What's that? Context, I said simply. I clicked the first audio file. Lauren's voice filled the room instantly. If she gets any money, we need to play it right. Act supportive. Act surprised. She eats that stuff up. Daniel's voice followed, tight and annoyed. She'll trust us. She hates conflict. She always backs down. Daniel's fork clattered onto his plate. Lauren stiffened like someone had iced her spine. This is fake, she said quickly. Edit it. I pulled out printed transcripts, timestamps, signatures, everything. Your father-in-law didn't fake anything, I said. He documented you. Both of you. Daniel covered his face with both hands. Mom, please don't do this. You already did, I replied. Lauren's voice sharpened. This is taken out of context. We were venting. People vent. I met her eyes. Venting doesn't come with strategy. I read aloud. Make her feel guilty. Tell her we're tired of carrying her problems. She'll back off. Lauren's breath hitched. Daniel looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. You weren't overwhelmed Christmas Eve, I said. You were executing a plan. He swallowed hard. We messed up. We know that. Messed up. I repeated. You shut the door on someone you claim to love. Lauren's voice cracked. We can fix this. Just tell us how. I sat back down slowly. You can fix yourselves, but you don't get to use me as the training ground. Daniel's eyes filled, raw and desperate. Mom, don't leave us. I already did, I said softly. The night you closed that door, the cabin went silent, a thick, final kind of silence. No yelling, no blaming, just the reality they built with their own choices. Lauren covered her mouth. Daniel trembled. I stood and wrapped the red scarf around my neck. A small gesture, but it felt like closure threading itself into a knot. You showed me who you are, I said, and I finally listened. I walked toward the door, the wood creaking lightly beneath my steps. Lauren whispered, please don't go. But I didn't look back. I walked out into the cold night, letting the door close gently behind me, not angry, not dramatic, just final. What I didn't know then was that walking away wasn't the end. It was the start of the first peaceful life I'd had in years. The cold air outside hit me like a reset button, sharp, clean, honest. The kind of cold that wakes you up from the inside out. I stood on the porch for a moment, breathing it in, grounding myself. For the first time in a long while, the world felt quiet in a way that wasn't lonely, just peaceful. Inside the cabin, I could still hear the muffled voices of Daniel and Lauren, panicked whispers, chairs scraping, the sound of two people scrambling to control a situation that finally slipped out of their grip. But that wasn't my storm anymore. I stepped out of it. Snow drifted around me softly as I walked down the steps, my boots crunching with each steady step. No shaking hands, no tears, no second thoughts. When truth finally sets you free, it's not chaotic. It's steady, like a door clicking shut. By the time I reached my car, the night sky had shifted into a deep navy blanket dotted with stars. I looked up for a long moment, whispering to the memory of Martha. I did it. Whether she heard me or not didn't matter. Saying it felt like exhaling 10 years of weight. I drove into town slowly, letting the heater warm the car and the quiet settle around me. I didn't go back to the hotel or the cabin. Instead, I stopped at a small diner, the kind with flickering neon signs and hot coffee strong enough to wake the dead. A friendly waitress greeted me with a "Hey hun, grab any seat," like I was a regular even though she'd never seen me before. I ordered chili and cornbread. Cheap, simple, warm, comforting in a way money can't buy. While I ate, I opened the last envelope Elias had left, the thin one he said I could open only after his death. I cracked the seal carefully. Inside was a letter written in shaky but determined handwriting. Yvonne, if you are reading this, then my time has passed, and the storm around my name is already brewing. You may feel alone. You are not. You may feel undeserving. You are not. What I give you is not a reward. It is a responsibility. Use it to live freely, not fearfully. Use it to live the life you and Martha dreamed of. And above all, choose peace. Elias, I folded the letter slowly, letting the words soak in. Choose peace. It felt less like advice and more like a gentle nudge in the direction I'd been too scared to walk on my own. Over the next several weeks, things shifted quickly. Cole and Adrienne unleashed every lawyer they could find, but Elias had been meticulous. Every signature, every document, every witness, airtight. Eventually, their legal noise died down when they realized the only thing they had inherited was the truth about themselves. Daniel tried calling several times, long messages, emotional apologies, pleas to talk things out. But apologies without accountability are just noise. I didn't block him. I didn't yell. I just stepped back and let space do what space does best. Reveal what's real and what's not. I moved into a modest home on the outskirts of a small coastal town. Nothing flashy, nothing oversized. Just a warm little place where the ocean wind swept across my porch each morning. I bought new furniture, nothing expensive, just things that felt like me. For the first time, the silence in my home didn't feel heavy. It felt like freedom. I donated a large portion of Elias's estate to build community shelters and fund construction programs for women starting over, something I wish I'd had years earlier. I kept enough to live comfortably, quietly, simply. Money wasn't the point. Peace was. And every morning, I wrapped Martha's red scarf around my neck, not out of grief, but out of gratitude for the life I had, for the woman I'd loved, for the version of myself I'd finally stepped into. One afternoon, while sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee and the sound of seagulls circling overhead, I finally understood something. Sometimes life breaks you so you can rebuild without the parts that were hurting you. Sometimes people walk out so truth can walk in. And sometimes a stranger you saved in a storm leaves behind the clarity you were too scared to claim on your own. I didn't get a perfect ending, but I got a peaceful one. And that, finally, was enough.